She never walked into the room hoping to steal the spotlight, but somehow it always found her. At the biggest night in music, surrounded by flashing cameras, glittering gowns, and towering egos, one quiet, humble woman was about to face something she never expected. A moment that was supposed to mark her arrival turned into something else entirely. She stood on the Grammy stage, holding back tears, as her acceptance speech was suddenly, and very publicly, cut off. No warning, no explanation, just silence, and all eyes shifted, not in sympathy, but toward the couple who seemed a little too pleased with the interruption. In that instant, millions watched her grace turn to confusion. The industry whispered, was it a mistake, or was it intentional? The couple, famous, polished, powerful, carried on like nothing happened. But behind the scenes, something had shifted, and for this simple woman, as the press once called her, it was the spark that lit a fire. She disappeared for a while after that night. No interviews, no performances, just stillness. But what no one saw was the quiet rebuilding happening out of sight. Studio lights replaced with candlelight. Headlines traded for handwritten lyrics. She wasn't planning a revenge, she was writing her truth. Then, just when everyone had moved on, she returned. Not louder, but stronger. And her comeback wasn't just a success, it was a storm. The same couple who once drowned her voice now found themselves watching her rise from the very stage where they tried to silence her. But how did she do it? And what really happened that night behind the curtains of the Grammys? Stick around, because the story you're about to hear isn't just about music. It's about grace, power, and a quiet strength the world underestimated. Before the night of the Grammys, she was known mostly to those who paid close attention to the quieter corners of the music world. Her songs weren't chart toppers, but they had soul, raw, honest, and deeply human. She wrote about loss, healing, and the kind of strength that doesn't shout. To her small but loyal audience, she was a hidden gem. But the mainstream, they barely knew her name. That changed the moment she was nominated, seemingly out of nowhere, for Song of the Year. It was a moment that surprised everyone, including the couple. Now, the couple wasn't just any celebrity duo. They were known for their influence, their red carpet looks, and their power over the industry. He was a chart-topping artist with a reputation for controversy, and she was a polished pop star with a perfect image. They smiled for the cameras, but insiders whispered about how carefully they controlled everything around them. So when the nominations came out and her name appeared beside theirs, things shifted. Quietly, subtly, but you could feel it. Some said it was jealousy. Others said it was strategy. Whatever it was, tension began to build. Interviews with the couple grew more pointed. Comments on social media hinted at something deeper. Some fans even noticed how the woman's performances were being overshadowed. Her name left off certain playlists, her interviews cancelled at the last minute. At first, people thought it was coincidence. But by the time Grammy night arrived, that theory didn't hold much weight. And then came that moment, the speech, the silence, the strange glance between the couple. It was over in seconds, but it left a stain that wouldn't fade. The question hung in the air. Was this all part of something bigger? Or just the cost of being a quiet woman in a loud industry? After the awards show, things didn't calm down. They got stranger. The internet lit up with clips of her silenced moment, slowed down, picked apart frame by frame. People noticed the way the couple glanced at each other just before the mic was cut. They noticed how quickly the cameras shifted away. It didn't look like an accident, but no one said anything official. The producers stayed quiet. The network avoided the topic, and the couple, they'd posted polished photos and vague captions about celebrating music and unity, never addressing the storm growing around them. Behind the scenes, whispers turned into rumors. Some said the couple had quietly lobbied to win the category. Others claimed they'd pulled strings to keep her from getting too much attention. Even people inside the industry started speaking up anonymously, of course. A sound engineer hinted that the speech cut-off wasn't a technical glitch. A publicist admitted they were told to push a different narrative. It all seemed too coordinated to be random. Meanwhile, she kept her silence. No tweets, no interviews, no shade, just distance. But even in her absence, her name started trending. Fans began digging into her music, finding lyrics that now felt almost prophetic. Words about betrayal, about being unheard, about fighting for a voice in a world that prefers noise over truth. Her small fan base began to grow, not because she asked for attention, but because people started to see her as something bigger, an artist who'd been done wrong. And quietly, beneath all of that, something else was happening. A producer who'd worked with both her and the couple started liking old posts of hers. A backstage staffer posted, then deleted, a cryptic message about what really happened that night. There was something deeper going on, something no one was saying out loud. Not yet. Months passed, and still no one gave a straight answer. The silence from the industry felt louder than the moment itself, but something was shifting. Slowly, quietly, she started to reappear, not in interviews or public statements, but in her music. Without warning, a new single dropped. No label promo, no sponsored posts, just her voice, clear and unfiltered, telling a story that felt all too familiar. It wasn't bitter, it wasn't loud, but it hit deep. Listeners picked up on every word, every pause, and one line in particular started making waves. Asterisk, they cut the mic, but not the truth. Asterisk. The internet exploded. Fans, critics, even casual listeners all wanted to know, was she finally speaking out? Was this her version of what happened? Blogs speculated, TikToks analyzed, hashtags trended, and once again the couple found themselves in the spotlight, but this time for all the wrong reasons. They posted a vague response that didn't name anyone, but everyone knew who it was aimed at. The tone was defensive, the smiles faded. Their carefully built image started to crack. Behind the scenes, more people began stepping forward. A makeup artist who worked the Grammys that night posted a photo with her and a caption that read, asterisk, she was never the one with the ego. Asterisk. A songwriter from her past shared how she once turned down a flashy collab offer because it came with conditions that didn't feel right. And the biggest twist? Elite email threads surfaced, supposedly showing the couple's team trying to pull her from a performance lineup just days before the show. With every new detail, the tension thickened. People weren't just rooting for her, they were waiting for what she would do next, waiting to see if the truth would finally come out. And then came the announcement, one performance, one night only, and the couple. They were on the guest list. The night of the performance arrived like a storm rolling in, quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. The venue wasn't massive, but it didn't need to be. It sold out in minutes. Everyone who mattered in the industry was there, including the couple. They arrived late, arm in arm, acting unfazed, but the energy in the room shifted the moment they walked in. Cameras caught every glance, every flicker of tension. People weren't just there for music anymore, they were waiting for a moment. And deep down, everyone knew something was coming. When she stepped on stage, the crowd fell silent. No dancers, no flashing lights. Just her and a piano. She didn't say a word before she started. The first few songs were familiar, fan favorites that reminded everyone why they loved her in the first place. But then the lights dimmed just a little more, and she introduced something new. A song no one had heard, not yet released, not teased, and it didn't just hint at the past, it cut into it. But then came the twist. Midway through the song, the screen behind her flickered to life. Security footage, real, time-stamped, began playing. It showed a conversation backstage at the Grammys. Blurry but clear enough. The couple's manager, talking fast, waving hands. A tech supervisor nodding slowly, checking a clipboard. And then, just for a second, a document flashed by. A list. Her name was crossed out. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It wasn't just speculation anymore. There was visual proof that someone had planned something, and though it still didn't show everything, it was enough to flip the story. Enough to send a message. This wasn't just industry drama. This was sabotage. And as the last note of the song hung in the air, she looked up, right at the couple. The crowd stayed frozen. Something had changed. But the biggest moment hadn't even happened yet. The crowd rose to their feet before the lights even came back on. People weren't just applauding the music, they were reacting to the truth. For the first time, the silence surrounding what happened at the Grammys had been broken. Not with drama, not with anger, but with undeniable evidence wrapped inside art. She didn't name names, but she didn't need to. The footage, the lyrics, the moment, it all said enough. Backstage, the couple sat in stunned stillness. Their carefully polished expressions cracked. They hadn't expected her to fight back like this. Not with accusations, but with proof. And while some still hoped there might be another explanation, the damage was done. Overnight, industry insiders began distancing themselves. Producers, collaborators, even former supporters began quietly pulling back. The couple's team tried to spin the story, blaming an overzealous assistant, a miscommunication, a technical glitch. But the public wasn't buying it. Then, just when it seemed like the storm was over, the real twist landed. A reporter broke a new piece of the puzzle. It turned out the leaked security footage was leaked on purpose. But not by her. It had come from someone on the couple's own team. A longtime assistant, quietly fired just weeks after the Grammys. According to the report, they'd kept everything, emails, texts, even audio clips. And when they saw how far the lie had gone, they decided to expose it. Not for revenge, but because, in their words, she didn't deserve to be erased. The final blow wasn't loud. It came with a single post from her, just a photo of her Grammy, resting beside a handwritten note, still standing, still singing, And in that moment, it was clear. They had tried to cut her off. But in the end, they had only given her the stage. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Her name, once a quiet whisper in the music world, became a symbol of strength. Not because she shouted, but because she stood her ground with grace. Labels that once overlooked her now lined up for meetings. She signed a new deal, on her own terms. Her comeback album soared to the top of the charts, not because it was pushed by industry giants, but because people genuinely listened. Her story was no longer just about the Grammys. It was about resilience, truth, and the quiet power of staying true to yourself. As for the couple, their fall wasn't sudden but steady. Tour dates were cancelled, brand deals paused. Fans began asking hard questions, and some never came back. They issued statements, apologies, tried to move forward. But something about their presence never quite returned to what it was. The shine had faded, the trust had cracked. They weren't villains, but they were no longer untouchable. In an industry built on image, perception was everything. And theirs had shifted. The assistant who leaked the footage, they eventually sat down for an interview. Calm, honest. They didn't ask for credit. Just hoped that maybe more people would speak up when something felt wrong. Their choice helped open a conversation about fairness, control, and the quiet politics behind the scenes in music. And her? She kept doing what she always did, writing, singing, staying close to the people who believed in her from the beginning. She never chased revenge. She didn't need to. In the end, her story was a reminder. Sometimes, the ones who get silenced come back with the loudest truth, not by playing the game, but by rewriting the rules. And this time, the mix stayed on.